Yo guys, what up, Viper here, and today we kind of finally have found a counter to Frost that seems to actually prevail, not be some cheese that every now and then can beat Jotun, something that is very consistently just beating pretty much all Jotun matchups. So I want to talk about that team to you guys, and this is what I've been playing recently, by far the most, so let's just get right into it. Now, you guys can see we are just looking at pretty much a standard Toxic Colossus Verdant Berserker team. Now, the Verdant part of this, right? Usually in the last patch with Toxic being so strong, we would play like a Toxic Colossus Kadulu opening, and then we would maybe add Null or Kellion for Verdant, and we just would be, I don't know, adding damage sources, mystic healing sources, things like that. The same thing you can see here. Now, why is this different? Why do we change now? What are the other ideas? So fundamentally, you guys have seen in a lot of videos in the past that I was using this nature Kadulu to start the game out with Toxic and then swap to a Verdant Ranger a lot already. Now, I was usually overloading that with Archelion and just a bunch of other things. The thing that is different here is we are just skipping Archelion. Why are we skipping Archelion? It's a Verdant unit that's super strong, because we just want to play this Lynx. Now, the current meta, if you watched any of the last videos talking about this, is basically super high tank stats, super high damage mitigation, plus a shield, plus healing. Now, the thing about the Lynx is, which is, let's call it a feature at the moment in the game, Lynx's ability slashes the target 3 times for 150 times Omega Power pure damage per slash. So it's 450 pure damage. That is really good versus Bulwarks, versus Colossus high resistance units. Now, the thing that we might as well call a feature at the moment in the game is that the pure damage is not only on the ability, but also on the auto attacks of this Lynx. So this 35 cost Lynx is pretty squishy, right? It's a 1400 HP, low resistance unit. But it does a crazy damage, because the attack damage is just going to be pure damage as well. Which translated pretty much means usually units at the moment have more than 50% damage mitigation, more something like a 62% damage mitigation, which means that this number you could also read as like 250 attack damage. Like if we want to compare it to a Berserker or something like that, basically. So super crazy damage dealer unit. And it fits really well. You play Kadulu, bond with Toxic Colossus, 35 points left. Can play Lynx on turn 1. Super strong turn 1, wins most of the matchups that you are facing. And then the new thing on turn 2, which usually we couldn't do, right? Usually we needed to add a Toxic Illuvium or some source of damage, but this Lynx is enough of a source of damage by itself. So on turn 2, you can swap the shield to a nature shield, you make a Verdant Colossus Ranger, and you can just play on Null. Now you have 25 points left. Usually this just means you equip a suit, and then on turn 3 you can unequip the suit and you can play your double Berserker combo, and you have then you have Toxic Berserker plus a really strong Verdant frontline due to the 3 Colossus, and including both your Ranger and Null having a Verdant as well. That is kind of the fundamental idea here. That is how you play the early game, and that is why it is so strong. Because Lynx, super powerhouse in terms of single target damage dealers, and then Berserkers, super strong single target damage dealers as well. And as you guys might know, on the Berserker trait, every third attack they deal extra damage, and they get stacking attack speed for the rest of the fight. So if the Berserkers can just keep auto attacking, they get stronger throughout the entire fight, which just works really well with the super high upfront damage that the Lynx is doing with the pure damage auto attacks and the super strong ability. But yeah, after that, you basically can either on turn 4 usually go for Apon or Dorius, or you can go for Titanor, Apon, or you can do Titanor and some augment on Mankier. It kind of depends on the setup of the game and the matchup and so on, but yeah, basically you start out the game Kadulu Lynx plus Toxic, then you go for Null Colossus, equip a suit, then you go for double Berserker, and on turn 4 you can either do Apon Adorius, Apon Titanor, Titanor and Augments, and then the next turn you always play like whatever was left out of these 3 plus like another small augment usually. That's kind of how you approach the games. It is relatively linear, but the positioning is surprisingly difficult, surprisingly intricate. There's a lot of stuff that you can do right, a lot of stuff that you can do wrong in this team, which is kind of the same with most melee damage dealer based teams. Right, if your melee damage dealers, the upside is they are usually super strong damage dealers. They do crazy amounts of damage. but they are very, very squishy, and if they get attacked by anything, they usually tend to die. And that is one of the things in recent patches. We've seen Riplan's resistances get nerfed, for example. It's only 41 physical resistance and 1600 HP, which for 75 cost unit is very, very weak, right? And it's similar on Mankaya. Mankaya did not nerf that much, right? You can compare Mankaya as even tankier than Riplan's, being only a 55 cost unit, but it's still 1600 HP, 50 resistance, and you don't have any bulwarks in your team that give team-wide resistance buffs. So again, very, very squishy damage dealers, but if they are free to attack, super, super crazy strong. The only kind of support you have are the verdant AoE, healing shields obviously, and the AoE stuns by Apon and such. Okay, let's quickly look at augments and why is there Ramfire in here as well. So in the mirror match versus other verdant enemies, anti-healing, same as always, super, super strong in these mystic healing based teams. Then there's a really good combo that you want to go for if you can in one turn. If you can't in one turn, you might not want to consider this. Now what do I mean is if you can go attack speed, and a crit chance on the monkey, and at the same time you can play teammates gain crit amp every 5 seconds. Very, very good scaling comp for like any of these fights, especially because they usually go to overtime. But if you can't play all those 3 augments in one turn, if you can only play 1, you can just go for attack speed on the monkey. If you can play 2, you can also choose a pure attack damage here instead of the crit chance, just for having a really, really powerful turn at the moment, because the games don't really go very late game, and if you win a fight very decisively, you do like 600 damage and you pretty much one-shot people from whatever HP total they have after the early game. So yeah, like definitely do consider the pure attack damage option here as well, if you can't also play the crit amp augment in the same turn. Yeah, outside of that, if you play versus Ramfire teams or any of these like AoE, magic damage, magma, inferno kind of stuff, certainly go for resolve augment on all your relevant carries, meaning your berserkers and probably your mystic unit as well. Then you want to go for Techno Leecher in a lot of these matchups as well for debuffing, like taking away the enemy energy. Exalted Apon is usually the best unit to carry that because it has a really high starting energy. And then this is really, really clutch on your turn 5 oftentimes, because it makes your unit untargetable for 2 seconds. Now 2 seconds isn't long, but if you have like a melee damage dealer versus melee damage dealer face off and yours just goes untargetable, the other guy stops attacking, walks to something else, starts attacking a tank, your guy keeps hitting the other guy, you super, super hardcore win that turn. And if you just play your standard units, you play your Kadulu, Lynx, Null, double Berserker, Titanor, Doris, Apon, you have 60 mastery points left. So those 60 mastery points oftentimes can be Vitality Veil plus attack speed on the monkey as like a super tempo play that turn, trying to close out the game for just really, really powerful turn 5. Or you can just do like Vitality Veil on the Riplan's or Vitality Veil on the Lynx, for example, if just looking at the current positionings and they are getting attacked by the enemy damage dealer, so the last turn on turn 4, now you can just put that augment and you don't have to reposition the unit, and your unit can probably win a 1v1 versus the enemy very decisively. Now, why is there Ramfire? Well, first of all, Ramfire is surprisingly viable in the mirror if you go to like turn 6. Turn 7 very rarely happens. Turn 6, Ramfire, very good. You can get Inferno chips, you can get Power Ascent on the legendary augments, works very, very well with that Ramfire. So you can certainly go for that. You can, I don't know, like sell Kadulu, sell Lynx, put in Ramfire, replay Kadulu. Very viable option in the mirror. Outside of the mirror, Ramfire very, very good against all the Psion teams, the 7 Psion things and so on. Very, very annoying to deal with if you play melee damage dealers. So yeah, against those teams, you just put in the Ramfire, you give it the capacitor energy, you give it the team-wide energy buff, and then you can check what currently looks good versus the enemy team. Maybe attack speed, maybe Omnivamp, maybe untargetable. Like all of that kind of depends on the matchup. I think the go-to relevant thing is the upfront energy from this, the upfront energy from this on a unit next to it, and then the third augment you can consider. Maybe you can even go for crit chance, which is a bit more damage because of Phantom. The ability can also crit, so that can work really, really well. I would say usually you don't have enough mastery points to play all of those augments anyways. Usually you can only play Charge Capacitor and this the same turn you put the Ramfire in. So don't worry too much about the second augment, because hopefully the game just ends on that turn. You can even consider to go for the 25 Omega power here, just giving the Ramfire Ramfire ult more damage, but I don't think that is super relevant. Just casting quicker for Inferno is more the big deal. And this really, really matters because the Psion matchups are very, very bad if you don't play this Ramfire. So yeah, Charge Capacitor, Synergetic Field, top priority, and then the second augment, if your Ramfire like drops low but survives, you can even give it this for example, healing 800 health at 40%. I think that is a very, very valid option. If your Ramfire just keeps dying, then yeah, just give it heal 800. Heal 800 is really, really good. So let's talk a little bit about gameplay. I first want to give you guys a little bit about the mirror match, because I do believe this is pretty much the strongest team at the moment and you'll see it a lot. So let's talk a bit about the mirror. Now you can see it's pretty much like the same list. There's like a small difference in the suit and like a small difference in min-maxing mastery points for the earlier stages with like different shields and such. But yeah, it's pretty much a mirror. Also like a Gorilla, maybe like a Predator emblem and other options. Gorilla maybe good versus Psion and such. Different sort of tech cards, but yeah, for our purpose of the mirror, it's the same. Now, legendary augments, well, here, this is a pretty interesting betting phase because two really, really strong ones and then two really, really strong ones here as well. Now, Retribution's Call, if you can manage to have the enemy monkey hit your Titanor, for example, this augment can literally just kill the enemy monkey. Like they eventually die to the fawns. Super, super good. But if the enemy has like full on 3-4 units attacking your fawns unit might die too quickly. So it can be a bit tricky to use, and it's either going to be super insane or it's going to be yeah, just a bit underwhelming if the initial Mystic Shields and the Dorius heals and such can counter it. Impact Dampener, one of the strongest augments in the entire game in this matchup, because 35% damage reduction. There's just so much damage reduction, plus a Verdant, plus Mystic Shield, plus a Dorius healings, plus everything, that your units barely take any damage anymore. So if Impact Dampener is on the side of the Berserkers, you're very likely to just win the fight because you just stat check the opponent. You just do more damage, you tank more than they do. Verdant is kind of the same idea, but it's a lot less effective than Impact Dampener. And yeah, Berserker Imprint on the Lynx, super, super crazy damage dealer. So these are very interesting legendary augments. In general, one of the main things about this matchup is just knowing the legendary augments better than your opponent, for example. So here we can see Berserker Imprint 1-1, Verdant 1-1, and then I value Impact Dampener higher than my opponent valuing Fawns higher, essentially. Okay, turn 1. Turn 1 is pretty much always your Kadulu, like in slightly this middle spot. You can lean a little bit to the side of the Lynx, you can lean a little bit away from the side of the Lynx. It depends a bit on the matchups, but usually like in this middle spot you want your Kadulu to be and your Lynx in the further bottom, and you want your Ranger positioned like slightly in front of the Lynx so that the Ranger is making the Lynx walk in as late as possible, because you want the enemy damage dealer to arrive at the front line, attack your tank, and your damage dealer to arrive late, so they attack the enemy damage dealer that is now next to the enemy tank. Well, you can see this here. The Colossus taunt sadly made the enemy taunted my Lynx into here, and the enemy Lynx was not taunted into that, so my Lynx just got focused by the enemy Lynx and we are losing this turn 1. But yeah, that is basically the turn 1. It's pretty similar to the Jotun RNG thing, where just depending on what the Lynxes attack and who kills something first, you win or lose. If you both do the same thing, right? You can see we both pretty much did the same thing. He's blocking the Lynx slightly more on this side. I'm blocking the Lynx slightly more if I'm walking to this side, so it's like a bit 50-50-ish on which side you play. But yeah, something like your Ranger in front of the Lynx and then the Colossus taunt RNG is usually going to be the rest, so don't worry too hard about this turn. Then on turn 2, you basically have, I would say, two major options. You can go for your Null like here and leave enough space for Monkey to walk past. You can leave enough space for only Lynx to walk through. Or you can just move your Null further to this side and have more space for all of the Berserkers. There are upsides and downsides to all of that. The upside, if there's very, very little space here, if in the future the monkey is in front of the Lynx and the monkey can walk in here, like this is the setup that my opponent has now. My opponent has enough space for the Lynx to walk in into me here. and I have enough space for the monkey to walk in. So that is really, that's like blind positioning, kind of unlucky, bad for me. But that is something to be aware of, because my monkey can walk in, and then the Lynx walks in, and the Lynx kills my monkey, while the monkey can attack the Null here, for example. That's this. We can skip forward. That's how this setup, the setup is like awkward. It's very awkward for me, because the idea is you have your monkey here, a monkey is around a bunch of nature units, Earth monkey gets hyper, and that's pretty safe because there's a big Null in front of the monkey before that. You can see here. Now the thing here is, this Null, it did not leave, there's one hex too little space probably. And or, that is a difficult thing to see sometimes. That's why we want to watch replays as well, right? It's kind of hard to tell, can the Lynx fit here or can the Lynx not fit here? Or is the Lynx, because my Null is so far to the left, that this path is faster than this path? It's also about the ranger blocking and not blocking the Lynx. So here, for example, I think if the enemy monkey would be in front of this Lynx here, the Lynx would not be walking this path, the Lynx would be stuck for a second, and then it probably would walk this path because the other berserkers are blocking this path, and then this Lynx would arrive after my monkey arrives and it would kill my monkey here. So I think that this is, like, it's not optimal to do this, basically. But on the other end, this is like the awkward thing about this mirror. Where my opponent could also see, well, if I do this and he puts the monkey there, then his monkey dies. So I should do this other play, right? So it's kind of this mental, like, thinking 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 steps ahead of your opponent and doing like a right or a wrong thing just based on the blind positioning thing, right? But that is the thing that is considered here, right? This Lynx is blocked, it can sneak in here while the monkey is attacking now, the Lynx is killing the monkey. So I could get punished by that if my opponent is playing this side, but my opponent is not playing this side, because then if I would play this side, right, and so on and so on. So yeah, you guys can see Lynx is attacking Null, monkey is attacking Null here. My ranger is tanking the berserkers. Usually you want all your 3 units to attack like the same unit preferably, or the same side, so they just focus fire things quicker. That's preferably what you want to happen. Like now I got to finish off one of the enemy damage dealers. My monkey is still a little bit stuck on the Null, and I will lose one of my damage dealers, but Riplans can trade 1 for 1. So yeah, it's just looking good, right? Pretty much, if you check this out, right, I have I just do more damage on this side, right? I have all my units focused like the same units if units die, and so on. So now stuff that you can do here is, I could have put my Mystic Monkey here. That means my Berserkers are blocked and they walk over here. Now, you want to do this block off, wall off thing, if the entire side can be walled off. You wanna stay true to the theme of you want all your 3 guys to attack the same enemy unit. So if my Null would be further to this side and I could entirely block off here with the monkey, then this would be fine. After playing the matchup more, and I sadly don't have a footage of that, so that's why I want to just explain here. Playing Titanor turn 4 in this matchup is usually better. Titanor just seems to outperform, it's a massive stun, it's a very tanky unit. So Mystic is not necessarily the turn 4 play always. You can just go for Titanor as well. There are upsides and downsides to this because of, well, when do you commit your Titanor positioning, when do you commit your Mystic units positioning and such, when do you commit your Mystic Monkey positioning and so on. So yeah, but in general, Titanor is higher power level on turn 4, and that is why I have personally started to usually do like Kadulu here, Null here, Titanor here if I'm same side, and same side with the enemy. So that then my guys just walk in and kill the enemy berserkers, like all 3 together after they're fully walled off. And if your opponent is on the opposing side, then you can just leave this side free. So basically what I'm saying is, if the Lynx is in this corner, turn 1 Kadulu is here, you see Lynx is in this corner, you just go Null here, you go Null here, you go Titanor later here. Just have all your tanks in front of their damage dealers. If the enemy is on the same side, then you play Null Titanor here, wall off the Kadulu side, so your damage dealers will walk over to the left, and they all attack either the same tank on this side, or they can attack the enemy damage dealers immediately if they're also walled off. Basically, you want to have a wall of tanks in front of the enemy damage dealers. And you don't want there to be enough space for any of your damage dealers to sneak through. You want them to stick together as this free guy unit of doom with its insane single target damage. And then the thing about the Mystic Monkey positioning that you genuinely want to keep in mind is that it is a mud unit. It slows the attack speed of enemy units that it is attacking. So you want to position it not in front of a tank. You want to position it with usually nothing in front, so that it attacks something, it casts the ability, and after Illuviums cast the ability, they refocus to the closest enemy that they can attack. So if there's nothing in front at the beginning of the fight, sure, it attacks the tank to the left or to the right or something like that, but then it casts the ability, and by then usually a Berserker is in front of the monkey, and the monkey can start attack speed slowing that Berserker. So yeah, here you guys can see that my positioning, I didn't do any like of these wall of things, but I have my monkey over here that is just surrounded by nature units, so the monkey is getting hyper, and the monkey is not getting stunned or attack speed slowed by the enemy mud unit, which is usually good. And now we have a hyper monkey, which is fighter hyper, super crazy damage dealer. I still have a full HP null with a verdant proc protecting it, and they all attack the null, while the monkey can now just start to clean up. So that is kind of the other option that you have when you don't want to have all your damage dealers at the same side. You're playing for the hyper on the monkey, and then you're playing to like win essentially later on in the fight after it was scaled on the Berserker and the hyper damage buff. It is kind of working on turn 4, turn 3, 4 especially, if you play for this hyper option. Later on there is just too much damage, and the hyper just kicks in a bit too late, while the rest of your team has a really hard time surviving. Now here, Titanor Impact Dampener, Titanor in front of the enemy Berserkers, super insane, there's not much more to say here. Also, I kind of just had the winning positioning from these other blind setups with Blind Monkey and so on and so on. So there's not much to do besides just play Titanor, play Legendary Augments, they're really strong. Titanor in front of the enemy. Now, the cute thing that you can see here is because I have 5 points left from the Saccharine, and my Lynx would eventually just walk over here or something like Lynx doesn't really get much done being here. But here, this is the cheesy kind of thing that I explained earlier, where this Lynx can now just walk by here. The enemies are attacking my Titanor. The Lynx will maybe be able to snipe down a Berserker. Now we see my opponent reposition the Ranger, reposition the Lynx, so my cheesy play with my Lynx is not working. The Lynx will just attack the enemy Ranger. Never mind, the Lynx managed to find its way to the other side and is attacking one of the Berserkers. I'm honestly not really sure why the Lynx couldn't fit here, but I guess Titanor is just too big a unit. But yeah, it's the same theme, right? The enemy Berserkers arrived at the front line a bit quicker than my Lynx, and my Lynx can just attack and chip away the enemy damage dealer here. Lynx is just doing crazy damage. At the same time, on this side, we just have like Monkey Riplins getting hyper, being a water Riplins, and there's the enemy Mystic Monkey, Earth, all the Earth units are on this side, all the nature units are on this side, so Riplins can get hyper. There's also something to look out for in this matchup especially. You want your Earth Monkey to be just, well, close to all the nature units and preferably away from the enemy Riplins. If it is a water Riplins, then the monkey can get hyper, and the Riplins away from the nature units close to all of the earth units, and the Riplins can get hyper. Fighter hyper, completely insane. Now this turn I'm essentially on winning positioning. I think it's really hard to adjust the positioning for my opponent to do much about me here. It's very hard to snipe all these units behind the Colossuses and so on. In general, both in the Jotun and in this team, especially in the mirrors, positioning and side swapping is on one hand really powerful, but on the other hand, it is a bit more difficult to do than it initially seems. It's not just do you put your units left or right, you have to perfectly adjust the frontline units as well, so that the enemy units attack frontline and your units attack the enemy units, and oftentimes it is pretty hard to do, right? Even here, talking about this last turn, I was expecting my Lynx to walk here, but this path, Lynx to Null here, is a bit longer than Lynx to Null here. So my Lynx decided to walk this path, and even though the enemy had units coming in here, my Lynx was already too far to this side to redirect to this side, right? And that is very, very hard to predict sometimes. Now my opponent also sideswapped this null, so it's pretty hard for me to predict this. I could have not had my ranger cover so far on this left. I could have had my ranger a bit further here. Then my Lynx might have this path shorter than this path with a like a wider angle or whatever you want to say this if my ranger is over here, for example. So there's a lot really, really small fickle manipulation of moving paths that you can do. And it's sometimes very, very hard to predict that. And also your opponent might just move a tank or might just move the ranger a little bit. And then your entire side swap that was very costly could be just beaten by the ranger being slightly different and changing the pathing or taunting units out of the way and so on and so on. Now, having my monkey with no lifesteal augment attack this retributions Titanor, that is a bit risky, but again, I'm like thinking, okay, my opponent probably wants to swap away from this impact dampener. Impact dampener is very, very strong. So if they don't swap away from this, I'm happy. If they swap away from this, then I'm not actually hitting retributions Titanor, because if I do, then my monkey is like safe and it's just cleaving into the enemy team. Now my enemy moved a bit away, my monkey is cleaving into the enemy Mystic Monkey, that is like acceptable for me, but legendary, double legendary augment Titanor, my monkey probably won't be able to kill that. And on the other side, the enemy monkey is totally walled off here, so it got redirected to the Titanor again, and it probably won't be able to kill this because Impact Dampener is just that strong. Yeah, and on the other side, my Riplans was blocked by the monkey and just arrived later at the front line than the enemy Berserkers. We can rewind this. Riplans just arrived later than the Lynx and the enemy Riplans, so I'm targeting the Lynx while the enemies are targeting Colossus. And yeah, it's kind of an easy win. Now, a really, really important thing about Titanor in this mirror match as well is Titanor targets the furthest enemy. You want your Adorius positioned in a way where it can tank the Titanor ability so it doesn't jump through the entire front line. And you also want your Titanor to be pretty much as far left or as far right as possible so that it is harder to make Adorius the furthest unit. Now here, last turn, I probably very realistically could and should have considered to swapping my Adorius over to this side so that this Titanor would blast to this corner and not through my entire team. But that would make my Adorius not block the Riplans positioning a bit worse, and my Riplans then would maybe arrive too early at the front line and lose. So there's a lot of this like small intricate stuff that is oftentimes really, really difficult, and I hope this gave you a better understanding of this overall. Now, I don't want to bore you with a like full gameplay review on this, but this is a matchup that people ask me how to play against a lot. I think this is one of the easiest to play teams in the game, right? You just do the same clumping play every single game. It's very, 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 very easy team to play. Let's say it like that, right? So let's like skip through and point out the very, very important things here, right? So now you just do Kadulu's Lynx like usual. You do Kadulu's as much in the middle as possible. Your opponents are supposed to skip turn 1 because they want to position their damage dealers on the same side as you. Now it's not always easy to tell that if you know your opponents 100% do that. You don't play the Lynx, you equip a suit and something, but okay. Our opponent essentially randomly 50-50 the correct side to place their bulwarks on. Now what do? We place a null in front of the bulwarks, place a ranger in front, just protect our Lynx, and our Lynx is very much protected, has verdant things healing it. So yeah, we win this round. One thing to note, if you're playing this Magma team, play the Singe line on turn 2. This triple bulwark turn 1, it's not really worth it, you're not really winning enough of it. Just play the normal setup of a Singe with Magma, Enchanter and Monkey and one small bulwark on turn 2, then you don't lose to something like this Lynx. I'm not supposed to win this turn, Magma is supposed to eventually, Magma and Singe are supposed to eventually kill the Lynx. 3 bulwark setup, not very good. But nonetheless, it's just for turn 2 and it doesn't change positioning sake. Now Berserkers, you want to be opposing side as this team. And we can see in a second here. So the fight starts, my opponent, you see here, blocks the units as good as possible. And that means that they arrive on this outer corner, they are fighting my Berserkers are fighting their units. And well, that was bad for me. My opponent just had more units to block the pathing of my units better, basically. So you don't want that to happen. What could we have done differently last turn? We could have blocked my units with my ranger more. So this is like this cheesy blocking units play. It works for like a turn, for sure, but then I can adjust my ranger for free. And so yeah, you guys can see now I can adjust my ranger, and we do this blocking pathing, arriving at the front line late theme like we always do. You see my monkey now couldn't move here, was like, oh, I'll move over here, and then eventually walks over here. And you guys can see monkey is on the cooker. Very, very good for me. Now, it's still gonna take a lot of time because there's like earth and shields and a bunch of annoying stuff, right? But eventually, monkey can maybe kill enemy units. Also, super, super important thing in this matchup, you don't play Adorius, you play Gazer. It's way better for hyper reasons, because they have these earth and fire units, and their ranger is fire and so on, so you don't want to add the nature Adorius here. Also, Geyser healing the entire team is very, very valuable. Oh yeah, you guys can see, you can like skip forward, Geyser healing, strong enough, and we just won that fight. And then next turn, instead of bringing in the Titanor, you guys can see we bring in Biogenic for anti-energy, Techno-Leecher for anti-energy, and we're bringing in Omnivamp on the monkey and the tech speed on the monkey, because, well, as the monkey just survives, they have... The enemy team is very DPS oriented, very small damage numbers that keep hitting, but if you can just heal against them, they don't have the burst damage to finish you off. So you can pretty much drain tank them. You take damage, you deal damage, you heal up, you take damage, but you never get insta-killed. So that is usually how you want to approach these with melee damage dealers. And yeah, having anti-energy augments, like the combo of both, super, super good versus the Enchanter team. This enemy ranger is barely ever casting an ability, so they do even less damage, and you will just get away with being this drain tank. Yeah, we can like skip forward these fights. Gazer is just keeping the entire team alive. Verdant is keeping the team alive. Omnivamp on the monkey kept the monkey alive. And then again, it kind of gets to overtime. Your unit's still alive. Gazer is a better healer for overtime than Adorius is. So, easy matchup. To show you guys for this video, I think the explanations have been a bit long, but this is a lot of very fundamental knowledge on how these melee damage dealer matchups work anyways. So if you made it this far, you're, I don't know, lot better at the game pretty much. So go test it out, climb the leaderboard, get your rewards. And I'm streaming pretty much every day on Twitch. You can catch me there. I don't know, click the creator program ref link kind of thing. Just check out the website. If you want to chill Illuvium to your family, please tell them to click the Illuvium.io/Viper and download the game from there. It helps with like the creator program reward kind of stuff. And yeah, pretty much appreciate you guys hanging out. Like, comment, subscribe, helps for the YouTube algorithm. The biggest thing for the algorithm though is if you have the video on audio on and just watch it for the entire duration. So that is like the biggest thing that you can do if you want to actually support the content and the channel and so on. I appreciate all of you guys, and see you guys in the next one.